Bento is a small box with a meal organized in a perfect way. Whether it's a breakfast, dinner, or even a dessert, bento boxes are very popular in Japan. Bento boxes are a reflection of the Japanese mentality, perfectionists who are well organized and restrained. However, they are able to appreciate beauty expressed in different forms. These boxes are a symbol of Japan on a small scale, but many objects and places represent this philosophy on a scale not encountered anywhere else in the world. I will try to show it in this film. My plane, a Boeing 777, left Chicago at midnight. This aircraft was gigantic. After 14 hours, I found myself in Seoul, South Korea. Here I had a brief stopover and a plane change. This airport was massive. It had over 130 gates. It's clean, well organized, and it has a nice transit hall for travelers who are just passing through. I've flown Air Asiana. This is one of the newer airlines in Korea. They have a fleet of modern aircraft, such as this double-decker Airbus A380. Here is Asiana's jumbo jet 747. And this is the newest Airbus plane A350. It's easily recognizable because the cockpit windows are framed with black sunglasses. It's a competition for a Dreamliner. The next plane brought me to Japan, and my first stop was the island of Okinawa. I've landed in the city of Naha. It took a while for the plane to land. The weather was bad, but we finally touched the ground. The metropolis stretches for over 180 square miles, although the city itself is not so big. It's scattered on the island and home to nearly 1.5 million people. Naha features a monorail train which runs across town. It takes passengers to places of business and to popular tourist attractions. This beach belongs to the town of Odo, but it is also known as Jonmen Beach, after John Manjiro, who was shipwrecked ashore at the Odo beach on his way back to Japan. Today, local residents gather oysters and catch fish here. It's an interesting place because it's a coral reef. There is sand on the beach, but it's covered with a layer of broken pieces of coral. Look at this. It's not exactly what you might call a sandy beach. In fact, the water's edge is pretty hard to walk on. I've only wandered knee-high in the water. I didn't want to risk plunging into the coral reef. There are fish and crabs living here, some nice and colorful, and some perfectly camouflaged. Can you spot them? Oh, and watch out for these blue crocs. They can be dangerous too. Odo Beach is just behind those trees, but during Second World War, Odo and the surrounding areas were witnesses to the mass bombing. The American Navy ruthlessly attacked this piece of land, trying to land their troops. For 2 months, from April to June 1945, the Japanese defended Okinawa. When the battle ended, nearly 250,000 people lost their lives. Today, it's a quiet place. The memory of what happened here was immortalized in these stone monuments. Here you can see tens of thousands of names of people who gave their lives in Okinawa. It is an eerie mausoleum of the madness which humanity has committed during World War II. Japanese army has capitulated, and Okinawa was in American hands until 1972. There are still US military bases on the island. It was time to leave Odo and head back to the city. I've rented a car in Japan, and it was the first time ever when I had to drive on the left side of the road. It was difficult, mentally, but I've managed. The traffic got pretty dense when I got back to the urban area. Luckily, the road was divided. Have you noticed that monorail train overhead? It's just left the airport. Let's speed it up a little. This was my hotel in Naha, that brown building, and a monorail stop just across the street. Pretty convenient location, don't you think? The 13th century Shuri Castle is available within a 30-minute ride on a monorail. It was a rainy day, so please forgive my shaky videos. Rich history of this castle dates back nearly 500 years to the times when the first generation of Ryukyu Kingdom built their residences here. I saw typical Japanese interiors at the castle, minimally furnished rooms with mats on the floor and paper walls. I was impressed with the throne room too. The castle burned down many times, and many times it was rebuilt. What we see today is mostly a reconstruction because very little remained of the original building, especially after the battle in 1945. Still, the outside walls were impressive. I found an interesting place just next to the castle, a stone street called Kininji, which survived the tumult of war. For nearly 600 years, the residents of Okinawa used this road as a shortcut. Look at these perfectly arranged stones. Even though it was a rainy day, the road wasn't slippery. Water was drained to the side channels where it didn't bother anybody. The Japanese decorate everything. Even the shingles on the roof have flowers. The dragons on the sides added to the beauty of the gate in this house. The alley is only 1,000 feet long, but in the middle there is a 200 years old tree. It reminded me of the tree from the movie Avatar. Moss-covered stones remember the times of samurais and shoguns. I imagine that before the war, many places in this area looked like Kininji. I've actually appreciated the rain because I've had a chance to see this brilliant drainage system in action. Similar to a bento box, precisely stacked stones survived the centuries, and even today they serve people of Okinawa. There was even a tea house at the end of the Kininji Road. I didn't have time to go in, and with my knowledge of Japanese, I would have probably ordered something else than tea. It was time to leave this amazing place. The adventure continued. Have you noticed the KFC sign on the left? It's there for a reason. Okinawa has a large US Air Force base, and obviously there is a market for American fast food. Let's speed it up a little. There it is, a KFC restaurant and a McDonald's a few blocks down the road. That camp on the right side of the road, that's a US Air Force base. And here was a shocker. Jimmy's Bakery and Deli. Targeting the right customer is a key. American and European bread, pumpkin pie, coconut cake, and some local specialties. Just what the Air Force crews needed. I bought a lunch for myself, a slice of pizza, dried mango, and some ice cream. Another hour in the car, and I got to the Emerald Beach. There is a small island called Ie on the other side of the bay. It holds yet another American Air Force base. The name Emerald comes from algae, which turns the water green. This bay is the Eastern China Sea. If we flew a plane from here for 2.5 hours, we would have landed in Shanghai. This part of the beach was not very good for swimming, especially if you think about crocs in the water. They're everywhere. This is more like it, a white sandy beach. Where is that swimsuit? Japan's largest cities boast of having an aquarium. Okinawa and the city of Naha are not big, but the Churami Aquarium is world class. I have expected to see this type of fish at Odo. It's there on a sunny day, but it rained when I got there, so here it is in captivity. Built in 1975, Churami was the largest aquarium in the world until 2005. The main attraction is here. 2 whale sharks swim around in 2 million gallons of salt water. They have some company, tuna, stingrays, even great white sharks, but they are the main attraction. This solid piece of glass is 2 feet thick, 74 feet wide, and 27 feet tall. Yet another perfectly organized Japanese bento box. City of Naha is of course a key port in this part of Japan. Two ferry lines join together Okinawa and the mainland. I was going to take a sail across the sea, but it never happened. The ferry company was sloppy with the scheduling, so I've decided to fly to Kagoshima. It was a short flight, only an hour and a half on board of this Boeing 737 flown by Seed Airlines. A comfortable bus from the airport took me to the city center. Kagoshima is a small but interesting town with a fantastic view of a volcano across the bay. We'll go there later. It's also a first stop of a bullet train. See the train tracks on the left? That's where it all begins. Next to the port, I've discovered a beautiful garden called Senganen, a traditional Japanese garden and residence which was in possession of the family Shimadzu for over 350 years. Senganen and the surrounding area played an important role in modernizing the country. This house is not a typical Japanese castle, but rather a household with multiple buildings and a breathtaking view of the volcano. I found a temple here that was dedicated to cats. Built in a traditional way of the Shinto faith, it featured a donation box and a cleansing station. When you walk into a temple in Japan, you wash your left hand, then your right hand, and then rinse your mouth. Then you're ready for a meditation or a prayer. This gentleman worked in his shop next door. His hand-sculpted animals were pricey but beautiful. And this was my first contact with a real Japanese ramen restaurant. Not the 30-second soup sold in styrofoam cups. This was the real deal. Ramen is sort of a fast food in Japan, but it's very tasty and always made fresh. The menu was printed there and there were pictures of the food on the buttons. I've selected a big bowl of ramen with some pork. I paid for it in the machine and I got a small ticket. I handed it to the chef, and a few minutes later a tasty bowl of ramen noodles landed on my table. It was delicious. The language barrier was difficult for me, but I've managed to learn a few basic phrases. In return, I got very warm reactions from Japanese. Popular places, especially those visited by tourists, are often marked in English, Korean, and Chinese. This character, iriguchi, means entrance, and this, deguchi, is an exit. I've used a time-lapse technique here. This video segment is only 45 seconds long, but it took me almost 3 hours to film it. At the end of day 1 in Kagoshima, I've stopped at the Shiroyama viewing point. It's hidden on a hill over the city. It offers a $1 million view of the volcano, the Kagoshima Bay, and the town below. And if you go there at sunset, you can see this amazing show of the evening light touching the volcano. Then the city comes to life in the evening. I've continued the idea of time-lapse photography in my hotel in Kagoshima. I've set up my camera in the window and I turned it on at 4 a.m. At first you can only see the cars and the streetlights flashing back and forth. The real show starts just about now, at the crack of dawn. My hotel window faced the volcano head-on. You don't believe me? Wait for it. Wait for it. Now that's what I call a breakfast with a view. Ishibashi means stone bridge in Japanese. There is an ancient stone bridge here for which the park is named after. Oddly enough, this bridge doesn't cross any major body of water. The stone bridge was moved here just before it was nearly destroyed at its original location. Take a look. The water here is only ankle deep, not a chance of drowning or getting soaked. That's a cool place to relax on a hot summer day. Sometimes water dries out completely when it's really hot. This is one of two bridges which were moved here and carefully restored. Later we'll come back to this strange pine which looks like a giant bonsai tree. Bridge number 2 featured a beautiful gate. Look at the metal work on these rivets. Did I mention that Japanese like to decorate everything? And here we have the second bridge. This kid found a nice spot to paint a volcano. I don't blame him for wearing a hoodie. The sun was really hot that day. The bonsai tree. Somebody forgot to trim it on time and it kept growing and growing until finally it needed some support for its heavy branches. I wonder how old it is. Sakurajima is an active volcano which occasionally spews out ash and smoke. A bus takes tourists around the mountain and to the viewing platforms. The entire area is covered with volcanic ash. Look at this. I put my shoe in it. This is not dirt. The highest viewing platform offers a beautiful view of the bay and the city. And here is the edge of the crater. The fiery pit is right behind it. Only scientists are allowed there, but this is why we have zoom lenses. After 2 hours, the bus returned to the harbor, and 15 minutes later, a local ferry brought me back to Kagoshima. The banister you see at the bottom of the screen is a part of a larger structure behind me. It's a shopping mall, restaurants with a breathtaking view, and even live entertainment. May the 20th. I had to take a street tram to a train station and start my high-speed trek across the country. Kagoshima is a starting point of a famous bullet train called Shinkansen. The network of these trains runs across Japan. They are as fast as small airplanes. Do you see that brown wall at the end? That's the beginning of the Shinkansen line.
Shin Osaka Terminal. There are 8 cars on this train.
The trains arrive and stop at the platforms with incredible accuracy. These people knew that the door was going to be exactly where they were standing. And it was. Of course, there are airlines here, but these express trains are more punctual. I was told that if a Shinkansen's more than a minute late, it's considered a scandal. The secret of this precision lies in a mechanical watch carried by every train engineer. This watch is synchronized to a single standard after each arrival at the station, and all employees have the same exact time. Yet another perfectly organized bento box, only this one can move along at a neck-breaking speed. The Shinkansen train brought me to Hiroshima. It too has a grid of street trams, some older and some ultra-modern. There's also a small network of trains called Astram Line, built in 1994 for the Asian Games, sort of mini Olympics. These trains were equipped with rubber tires instead of hard metal wheels. They run mostly underground, but occasionally an interesting building marks a stop at the surface. I was deeply moved by what I've seen next in Hiroshima, and I wrote this short poem. My hotel was only a few steps away from the spot where it happened. Right here, 1,000 feet or 600 meters above, the first atomic bomb exploded over a city. This modest obelisk marks the spot. It's a quiet place today. People go about their business, and visitors like me stop to take a photo. Yet there is something else around the corner, something we all know from the history books. Please forgive me for not smiling in this photo. This place gave me nothing to smile about. The eternal flame burns in the Memorial Peace Park across the river from the dome. It will burn here until humanity abandons the idea of nuclear weapons forever. This cenotaph carries this inscription in Japanese, which translates to, "Let all the souls here rest in peace, for we shall not repeat the evil." I have shown my respect to those who perished here. I found this group of children playing their music in Memorial Peace Park. Listen to how perfectly in sync they are. Yet another beautiful bento box, only this one was filled with music. This is Mitaki-Dera, a Buddhist temple on the outskirts of Hiroshima. It survived the atomic blast with just minimal damage. This small bridge and statues of Buddha, adorned in red, welcome the visitors. The temple asks for a small donation of 200 yen to enter. A musical box decorated with lotus flowers offers a nice chime for your offering. Japanese really like their boxes. Let's go inside. These monk statues greeted me halfway to the top. They were life-size. Two streams supply water for Mitaki-Dera. A refreshing drink is needed after a steep climb, but water is used mostly for ritual cleansing. Remember, first left hand, then the right hand, and then the mouth. Buddhist temples offer these prayer leaflets. You can purchase one for a small donation of 100 yen and attach it to the string. I bought one for someone dear to me, someone who suffers from a terrible illness. Just as I was ready to attach it to a string, a bell rang in the forest. Coincidence? These people came here for a prayer, but I could hear Buddhist monks chanting inside. It was time to leave. On my way down, I spotted some interesting sculptures and even more Buddha statues dressed in red bibs. The color red is supposed to keep the bad spirits away. And I finally found the bell hidden in the forest. Did I dare to ring it? But of course. I took a boat ride on the Hiroshima River down to Miyajima. At first I wondered why these windows were so dirty on the outside, then I realized I was on a speedboat in a sealed cabin, that's why. Miyajima greeted me with these friendly miniature deer. They walk around the island freely, and nobody bothers them except for tourists like myself. The deer were obviously looking for food, but I wasn't sure what to give them. I didn't want to try to break any tree branches. The animals are used to petting and touching them. That was just enough for both of us. The reason why I came here was this. This is a Shinto gate, a sign that says there is a Shinto faith temple nearby. When the tide is low, you can walk to the gate and even touch it. When I got there, the tide was high and rising. And here is the temple. It was one of the largest ones I've seen in Japan. I didn't go inside. There is not a lot to see if you're not a Shinto faith believer, but the architecture on the outside is interesting. The sun was going down. It was time to go back to the city, but not before I took some awesome sunset photos. I had to take another transfer at Shin-Hakushima station of the Astrom line. Only this time I've had a chance to see it in the evening. The last item on my list was the Hiroshima Castle. This is a complete reconstruction because the original building was wiped out by a nuclear blast. The castle was rebuilt according to old photos, pictures and plans. Next stop, Osaka. I took a short stop on my way to the city for a visit to a castle in Himeji, one of the most beautiful palaces in Japan. It's larger than the Hiroshima castle, but what's most important, it's all original. Himeji is all white with minor gray accents. You can see it right away when you arrive at Himeji train station. The reflection is visible on those windows. Oh, let me show it to you. That's better. Let's go. The white facade gave the castle a nickname White Heron, Hakurojo. The history of Himeji dates back to the 12th century. The castle survived in almost undamaged condition since then. The interiors are mostly empty, with only a modest display of old armory. The outside view of Himeji is breathtaking. Look how the sunlight played here on the roof. I love this photo. That door, if opened, led straight to the roof. I wonder what it was used for. The hardware on it was all original. The steps on these stairs were incredibly high. It was very difficult to climb up. Was that a defense mechanism? Who knows? I hoped for a beautiful geisha at the top floor. The only people I found there were tourists. Oh well, I've met a geisha later that day. After the fall of a feudal system in the 19th century, the castle was taken over by the state. It's a pride and joy of Japan today. A beautiful white bento box, perfectly preserved for centuries. Kyoto was once a capital of Japan. The imperial palace was, and still is, a residence for the royal family, although the emperor lives in Tokyo these days. This is Gion, a busy district in Kyoto, filled with restaurants, cafes, gift shops and theaters. Sometimes you can see women with geisha makeup on and dressed in a kimono. Often there are tourists who dress like a geisha, but they're just having fun. True geishas are companions who provide cultural entertainment for the guests. An apprentice geisha is called maiko. Geisha with experience are known as geiko. A dinner is by appointment only. You cannot just walk in from the street and ask for it. A 2-hour dinner with geiko costs $1,000. There are people who appreciate this kind of art, and they are ready to pay the price. My dinner with Maiko cost me $120, and I've joined a small group organized by a tour agency. This was my Maiko. Her name was June, and she was only 16 years old. She bowed to us in a traditional Japanese manner, and she's performed a couple of dances. Part of the show was a traditional game. A geisha and a guest kept touching a stone placed on a pillow. They could only touch the stone with an open hand to the rhythm of music. Otherwise, if the stone was taken away, the players had to put a closed fist on the pillow. If a player touched a pillow with an open hand, the game was over. Watch this. This time, the guest won, and Maiko gave her a small souvenir. Here is another player. They started slowly and gradually increased the tempo. It was an interesting experience, a unique look at the mysterious world of traditional Japanese culture. I visited an aquarium in Osaka. There was a Ferris wheel right next to it, which gave me a chance to take great photos of the city. A shopping mall below was hiding a strange sea creature. I found her, the mother of all blue crocs. And finally there it was, the aquarium. The building didn't look that big from the outside. I was surprised to see what the inside of it was hiding. These crabs were huge. Their bodies alone were the size of a cat. Here is a transparent cuttlefish, a pufferfish, and finally a familiar picture. Do you remember Windows 7 wallpaper? That was it. They photographed it in Osaka. That stingray seemed to be missing a part of its stinger. A manta ray, a gentle plankton eater giant, gave a breathtaking show. I wish I could spend more time here, maybe next time when I go to Japan again. About 20 miles east from the center of Osaka, a small town called Horyuji hides a true historical gem. It's a Buddhist temple that's the oldest wooden building in the world. Yes, there are stone castles and pyramids thousands of years old, but this temple is made of wood. Built in the year 607, it burned down a few years later, but it was quickly rebuilt. Since then, it survived almost 1400 years. I've seen people praying inside this small building. I didn't want to disturb them with my cameras, that would be disrespectful, so we'll only see it from the outside. We're getting closer to the central square. Here is a bell and a donation box. That's the main building. Officially, the temple doesn't allow photography. I was able to take a quick peek anyway. There are 1000-year-old artifacts inside. We'll see it soon. An awning surrounds the outer edge of the temple square. It's a nice place to hide from rain or scorching hot sun in May. You can see the age of these artifacts here. 1000 years of wind and dust has rubbed off some of the gold. I'm only going to show you a small fragment of a holy place I've seen in this building. Inside, there was a scent of old catacombs, a scent of 1000 years gone by. $1400 later, Horyuji is still standing here. When Rapa Nui settlers landed in Easter Island, people of Japan built these pagodas. Another beautiful bento box? It's much more than that. Just as the stone sentinels in the Easter Island, the Horyuji temple gave people hope for the future and remembrance of their ancestors. In Kyoto, I've discovered a fascinating Zen temple with a familiar name, Keninji. Do you remember that stone road in Okinawa? In the middle of a busy city, in the center where hordes of tourists run back and forth in Gion, there is an oasis of peace and meditation. The park outside is just a prelude to a gorgeous bento box with perfectly manicured paths and breathtaking Zen gardens inside. Every temple in Japan asks visitors to take their shoes off. No exception here. Here is a cleansing station, and this sign asks visitors to refrain from laying down. I wonder why. This temple hides a historical painting of gods of thunder and wind called Fujin and Raijin. This dragon room was painted by Koizumi Junsaku. I was most impressed by this miniature Zen garden with a tree and a stone surrounded by sand. It looks like an island in the middle of the ocean. Do you see ripples on the water? Nothing really moves here, but the garden is full of energy. A larger Zen garden on the side was even more impressive, though this one reminded me of shallow streams. Look at these long lines. It's hard to imagine how much patience and work is needed to keep the sand in such perfect order. I wonder what happens when it rains. Keninji is an amazing place. It's a tranquil oasis where you can sit down in silence and leave a noisy city life behind you. May 23rd. I took a 6:30 a.m. train from Osaka and I was on my way to the city of Nagano. At first, I took this regular train called Thunderbird. A couple of hours later, I transferred to a bullet train in Kanazawa. Nagano hosted the Winter Olympics in 1998. The stadium today is used mostly for baseball games. Nagano is not very large, but I found some interesting places here. One of them was a temple of Zenko-ji. The Keninji temple in Kyoto was a closed oasis in the middle of the noisy city. Zenko-ji is more open to the world, and there are crowds of people here. I got there on Tuesday afternoon. Light rain scared the Taki tourists away, which gave me a chance for better photos. Here is a massive donation box, and right behind me, an ancient symbol of swastika. It's a square, and the arms point counterclockwise. Tragically, the German Nazis used a modified version of this symbol, and no, I'm not going to display it here. We all know how it looked like. Zenko-ji is a Buddhist temple. A 20 feet or 7 meters tall statue of Buddha greets the visitors. Here we have the prayer leaflets. Some are just paper, some more contemporary, shaped like a teddy bear or a CD, and for those who donate more generous offerings, gold-plated wooden tiles. They click and clack in the wind. The cleansing station had vessels for multiple users. This temple is really crowded on a busy day. The main statue of Buddha had a company of 6 smaller sculptures of bodhisattvas. They are incarnations of Buddha, monks who gave up Buddhist enlightenment in order to provide salvation to others. The bodhisattvas are said to be able to commune with 6 realms: starvation, carnage, the underworld, animals, divine beings, and the human beings. If you look closely, you will notice that the statue on the left is holding a baby. The red bibs and hats were to keep the bad spirits away. I suppose the pigeon wasn't one of them. Zenkoji is perched on a hill and it has multiple entry points, yet that day was pretty quiet, with just minimal street noise. I was really tired, so I took a short break on the steps of this giant incense burner. The sun was going down. One more look at the Buddha, and it was time to go back to a hotel. The next day adventure was to be one of the most amazing places. On the second day, I took a trip to Matsumoto Castle, 1 hour away from Nagano. It's known as Black Raven because it has black roofs and windows, except for a few bright accents. Unlike other shogun castles, it's not placed on a hill. It was built on a flat terrain, surrounded by a solid moat. Today, most of these castles in Japan are just empty rooms, separated by walls made of paper. Matsumoto dazzled me with the richness of its interior. On the second floor, there was a huge collection of armor and weapons of the samurai era. Like the White Himeji near Osaka, Matsumoto survived in its original condition. Built in the 16th century, it looks today exactly how Shogun Tokugawa imagined it. One more bento box, perfectly maintained for centuries. In Tokyo, I visited 3 incredible towers standing proudly over the city of 38 million. The first one was in this neighborhood. No, not this ugly brown building. To see the Tokyo Tower, we'll have to turn left. There it is. The orange structure was based loosely on the concept of Eiffel Tower. It was even shown in a Godzilla movie. It's a radio and TV transmitter. It's over 1,000 feet or 330 meters tall. It has 2 viewing platforms, one halfway up and one almost at the top. Tokyo Tower used to be the tallest man-made object in this country, unbelievably, until 2010.
Welcome to Tokyo Tower. We will arrive on the second floor of the main observatory, about 150 meters high. Please enjoy the panoramic view of Tokyo.
It's completely repainted every 5 years, and it takes 1 year to finish the paint job. That day, the upper platform was closed. What can you do? I've noticed an interesting window on the floor. Did I dare to stand on it? Nah. Tokyo Tower is still a TV transmitter, but most importantly, it's a historical landmark, a place you have to see while in Tokyo. Back on the ground and back on the road to a tower number 2, the Roppongi. This time we'll turn right to get there. It's a massive office building named appropriately after its neighborhood, Roppongi Hills. The atrium greets visitors with a beautiful fountain and not so beautiful sculpture of a spider. Ew. The tower is almost 800 feet or 230 meters tall, and it has 54 floors of offices, clubs, retail stores and restaurants. The upper deck holds a landing pad for the helicopters. And of course the top floors are a popular tourist destination. View from the top is breathtaking, though it depends on what you're looking at. These brown buildings look like a bunch of cardboard boxes. What was that architect thinking? You can spy on many areas of Tokyo from the top. For example, here we have the Imperial Palace and its gardens. And what is that tall object in the distance? That's the tower number 3. Let's go. Tokyo Sukaitsuri, or Tokyo Skytree, is a huge television broadcast tower placed in Sumida neighborhood. It looms over the surrounding area, and it's literally a skyscraper. The subway line runs under the tower, but I couldn't find an underground entrance. I had to take multiple escalators to get to the main door. Normally, I wouldn't be that interested in riding escalators, but I'll give you a moment to guess why I'm showing them. Do you see it? All 4 of these transporters run outside. Nothing protects them from the rain or snow. All that hardware is completely weatherproof. And just like everything else in Japan, squeaky clean. I got to the Skytree early in the morning. The place was still pretty quiet. Local merchants were getting ready for a Saturday full of tourists and their money. Look at this tower. It's 2,080 feet tall, or 634 meters, and it's the second tallest man-made structure in the world, next only to Burj Khalifa in Dubai. It's so tall that on a day like this, the antenna at the top casts its own shadow in the clouds. Do you see it? Well, it was time to take these blue Crocs to the top. An express elevator took me to a dizzying height of 1,200 feet, or 350 meters, in about 40 seconds. What a view! This was the top level of a 3-floor structure. It almost felt like I could see the curvature of the earth. What an incredible perspective of the city. Pay attention to that mile-long strip of greenery in the middle. It's a park. We'll go there soon. The viewing pod at 350 meters has 3 levels, and you guessed it, more escalators. The tower staff tried to convince me to stand on the glass floor. No thanks. Suddenly the phrase YOLO, you only live once, had a whole new meaning. On a clear winter day, you can see another colossus looming over the city. Only that one was here long before people planted their iron tree in the sky. Let's go back to the park I talked about. It's almost a mile long. I've marched the entire stretch of it. At the end, I turn right and I walk to an Edo museum and a sumo stadium. Are you ready for a brisk walk? Oyokagawa Park is a place where families can rest from the noise of a big city. It starts right here, at the foothold of the Skytree. When I was there, some kind of festival took place in the park. You could find candy and cute toys in these booths. Cute is a serious business in Japan. Oyokagawa is almost a mile long, with just one street intersection crossing it. It has playgrounds for children, water parks, and places for relaxation on hot summer days. Only pedestrians and bicycles are allowed. Just like Central Park in New York, this place serves the entire community. Everyone can find a nice place here for themselves. This is the spot where the park is interrupted, but it continues on the other side. Finally, the park ends and it turns into a water canal. A quick walk to the street level, and we can still see the sky tree. I've promised you a trip to a museum. It's in this neighborhood. A museum of Tokyo Edo bears the old name of the city given to it in 1603 by the Tokugawa shogunate. It was used almost until the end of the 19th century. Edo burned down several times during the turbulent history. Today, it's one of the largest metropolitan areas in the world, with nearly 38 million inhabitants. This is how it started. These models show how the city evolved and grew. Here is a print shop with the ukiyo-e art. These modesty screens present beautiful geishas. And here we have a sushi shop for hungry travelers. This was a map of the museum. I knew it because I've spotted a Volkswagen car in the middle. I know, yet another escalator. This was an exit from the museum. I'm showing it to you because this is the longest continuous escalators I've ever seen. A complete ride took me almost 2 minutes. Excuse me, sorry. Ryogoku neighborhood is a home for a sumo stadium. You can spot the wrestlers walking on the street. With a bit of luck, you can even have a photo taken with one of them. The streets are adorned with the sculptures of sumo wrestlers. Did I rob a belly of this guy for good luck? Of course I did. I visited the stadium at the end of the championship season. I hoped for an admission ticket, but I have seriously underestimated the popularity of this sport. All tickets were sold out. I should have booked a seat online and on hope for it that late in the season. A quick ride on the subway brought me to the Tsukiji fish market. The place where the tuna auctions happen in the morning is a few steps away from here. To see that, I would have to wake up at 3 a.m. This was the next best thing. Squid jerky, anybody? Some of these products were incredibly expensive. The smoked scallops were going for $300 a kilogram. That smoked fish was more affordable, and the sushi boxes were even cheaper. This building is a famous spot in Ginza neighborhood. It's known as Kabuki-za, a Japanese theater where traditionally men play all the roles, even the female characters. I didn't go inside. I wouldn't understand 1/10 of it, but here are some photos of the audience boxes and the performers. I took a ride on a double-decker bus around Tokyo. It started right here in the middle of the downtown area. Pay attention to that red brick building on the right. It's Tokyo Central train station. Everything is hidden underground except for a handful of offices here. This station, unlike others, has no central concourse with clear exit to the platforms. It's an anthill of tunnels, elevators and escalators. I've managed to find my way, but just barely. The west exit was preserved to keep the old-fashioned appearance. The east exit looks ultra-modern. No red brick here. I've continued my bus tour. Next place on the agenda gave me fantastic photo opportunities thanks to a Ferris wheel. I rode to a Venus fort. The expressways in Tokyo are really confusing. Add to that the fact that the cars drive on the left side of the road and the language barrier, and I couldn't handle it on my own. A straight drive to a couple of destinations in Okinawa was manageable, not this. Here I crossed the Rainbow Bridge. It reminded me of a Verrazano Narrows in New York, though it was much shorter. Look at this cool thin building in the distance. We'll get back to it soon. Finally, the Venus Fort. A ride on this Ferris wheel was a good idea. The sun was going down and I had good light. The east side of the Tokyo Bay is a cargo port. It doesn't look very busy, but these terminals handle 100 million tons of cargo every year. The building in the middle is a Fuji TV station. It has an odd sphere suspended at the top floor. Back to that skinny building I mentioned earlier. It's not a building at all. See? No windows. It's smokestacks for a trash burning station below. Japanese collect combustible trash in separate containers, and it ends up here. Thanks to this place, one man's trash is another man's morning shower. Oh, is that the Skytree Tower in the distance? It's still dominating the skies, even from 10 miles away. I had to go. It was getting dark, and I've had a couple of places to see in the city in the evening. One of them was Ginza, a ritzy shopping district in the heart of Tokyo. I've noticed hundreds of small light boxes on the sides of the buildings. They were simply signs directing people to the businesses. Here we have a hair salon, a bank, 7-Eleven, a restaurant, and something else. Some businesses are underground and some way up on the high floors. Motsuya Ginza is a Macy's of Tokyo, and these places here don't need much introduction. This is interesting. This sign is a symbol of a company called Yamato. It's a Japanese equivalent of UPS. The company is almost 100 years old. The logo is a concept introduced by a founder, Yasuomi Ogura, who said, "We will take care of your packages as carefully as a mother cat takes care of her kittens." I've seen Yamato trucks everywhere in Japan, and lately I've even spotted one in Chicago. Interesting. Chanel has its own building in Ginza too. In the evening, it dazzles everyone with an interesting light show. Take a look. Toriba is a coffee shop in the center of Ginza. One thing that makes it different is the price of their coffee. It's 100 yen or $1 per cup. I love the ambience of that place. The store had different types of coffee machines and different flavors of coffee on display. Of course, I've ordered a cup and a red bean cookie. The whole enterprise cost me 300 yen. It was delicious. The real reason I visited Toriba was hidden next door. No, not this glowing door with the flashy sign. Look to the left, right there in that small passage. It was a Shinto temple called Toyo Iwai Nari. Do you see it? Wedged between the high-rise buildings, two foxes guard a temple bell, a donation box, and a cleansing station. Even here, in the center of a ritzy neighborhood, people found a spot for a traditional Japanese temple. I've made a small donation to show my respect, and I've moved on my journey. Here we have the Imperial Palace in Tokyo. I've had no chance to enter, hardly anybody does, so I've taken a short trip around its perimeter. I was told this area is the most expensive piece of land in the world. Tokyo, like other big cities, has sky-high prices of land in the city center. Imperial Palace is a huge and expensive area that does not serve anyone but the royal family. Architects, builders, and investors keep an eye on this huge piece of land in downtown Tokyo. As long as Japan doesn't part ways with the monarchy, the imperial residence stays here. The palace is closed to the visitors. Only on New Year's Day, Thus the royal family appeared to the public for a short time. Parts of the palace gardens are open to the public. You can go there and see the manicured greenery, but there is no chance of seeing anything more than the park. Only a dozen lucky people who put their names on the long list have the honor to enter deep into the imperial gardens under escort a few times a year. With a little luck, they can catch a glimpse of the royal family. The waiting list is long, very long. I had no chance of getting that honor on my trip. This royal bento box hides the treasures of Japanese history. It was locked and the key was hidden so that none of these treasures can be stolen. In this shot, I haven't noticed an ugly electric panel in the background. I couldn't decide whether I should move the camera up or down, or maybe up again. I've lost my balance on the stairs here. I've almost fallen. This shot was poorly framed and I couldn't use it. I should have composed it better. My GoPro camera was mounted on a bicycle. I hoped for a smooth ride around the castle, but I forgot that bikes are pretty shaky at low speeds. A mat on the floor. Fascinating. I've mounted a GoPro on a suction cup on a bus window. This shaky bus was too much for it. And here are people walking in my shot, literally between a camera and me. Look at this guy. Take two. Another guy. Oh, please. These ladies stopped, but this guy was more pushy. And here I walked into my own shot. This is not a blooper, more like a curiosity. This older gentleman was unable to run with the dog. He trained the dog to run around him. I've seen that 2 or 3 times in Japan. Here I got lost at the exit from the Odo beach. I should have turned left, but I went straight ahead. No exit here. Not here either. Only country roads. Time to turn around. And here is a classic, finger in the lens. I saved this scene thanks to a digital editing. And one more finger. I'll have to stop doing that. This is a time-lapse sequence. GoPro has a very wide-angle lens. Another photographer put his tripod in my shot. In a time-lapse, this guy was visible only for a second, but he stood there for a few minutes. That was a really loud pedestrian crosswalk beep. The bus left the red light with a loud hiss. And this is my favorite blooper. I couldn't ring that bell. I kept yanking the hammer back, but it didn't work. Take two. Oh, you have to push it, not pull it back.